while the living portion was pretty much totally destroyed, the one part of the building that wasn't much affected by the fire was the garage. It's pretty much undamaged by the fire. And that is because there is a 1-hour firewall between the garage and the home. That's required by code. And I would just point out that that's why we have codes, and they worked very well, and they certainly did their job here. Normally, that wall is there because the fire starts in the garage and spreads to the house. In this case, it started in the house. Okay, so we talked about the entry. There were 2 crews at the door. There was another crew in the street laying a water supply, making connections and doing backup and support work. And the truck was also arriving about this time and would be setting up for truck operations. When the first 2 companies entered the front door, they did encounter heavy fire conditions. They reported fire on the left, fire to the right, fire in front, and they were attacking these fire and getting some extinguishment of the fire, making pretty good headway. Let's see. It was at this point, as the fire crews were right, just inside the front door, that one of our captains did sustain an injury, received a second-degree burn on his side, and he was transported to the hospital, examined, and treated there, and released that night. And today was seen in the burn center for further evaluation to see, make sure that proper care was being given to it. We did talk to him this evening. He's home. He's resting. Certainly in some discomfort. It's going to take several weeks for full healing and recovery there. So we take all these types of injuries, especially one as significant as this, and I would call this a significant injury. We take it very seriously. I intend to conduct a very thorough and objective investigation by a third party who can tell us what the factors were that led to this and how can we avoid something similar happening in the future. Those are pretty much the pertinent facts I have here, but if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them.
There's a rumor that the fire scene had to be returned to because the fire had reignited.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Well, it's not a rumor. That's a situation that we call a rekindle when the fire reignites. There was extensive overhaul done on this building. If you go by, you'll see. An overhaul means tearing the building apart, doing everything we can to make sure we're getting at any hidden fire in the walls, in the attic, the roof, eaves, any place that fire might be. This roof is pretty much removed. The eaves were removed. Walls were opened. Extensive overhaul was done, and in addition, fire crews remained on the scene for some time after the fire. But there was a point where everything seemed to be calm and out and felt that it was safe to return to station, so they did. However, still, I think it was around 3 in the morning, something like that, the fire rekindled, started itself, I think, again in a roof area, and so we did have to return to the scene and put that part of the fire out.
And what was the equipment that returned on the side?
That I do not know. Probably, I'm guessing a full first response again, but I can't. I didn't look that up, so I couldn't say absolutely. But I would assume it was a structure in a fire. It would have been a fire in a structure. It would have been responded to as a normal structure fire.
Do you know what time?
If I may add, if you have the chance to go to this fire, I think there's some things you can see that will be impressive to you, that this was a fully involved building, and the proximity of the homes out there is pretty close, no more than 10, 12 feet between them. And the job of the firefighters in protecting those buildings and homes on either side was really commendable. I don't think there was any damage sustained by any of the structures around it, so they did a great job with that.
Do you know what time the initial responders returned to left the scene?
I don't know exactly. I know I left the scene around 8:30, and I'm sure they were probably there till about midnight or so.
Okay. Councilmember Tam?
Just 2 questions. I understand there was also another firefighter who was injured.
Yes.
Is he or she okay?
Yes, his injury was more minor, but still significant, and that will be looked at also. In this case, he was in the structure wearing gloves, but he grabbed a wrought iron hand railing, and it was just hotter than he anticipated, and it burned through his glove, and he got a second-degree burn in the palm of his hand. Both of these injuries, by their nature, indicate that the intense heat that was in the structure, resulting from the extensive fire that was in the building. It was a very hot situation.
Go ahead.
Just the second question is, you mentioned that there was 21 people that responded to the first call, and did that include the second alarm from Oakland?
No, that
So
was just our...
The whole time that this occurred between 6:28 when the first call came in till around 8:30 when you were there were still 21 people?
No. Well, no, because as soon as the fire is out and we're starting into a cleanup phase, we try to start releasing engines as soon as we can. We didn't keep the entire first alarm, all those units there. When I left, there was still, I think, 3 companies on scene. But we start to move people back into the stations. They need to go back, get their equipment cleaned up, get their engines back in service. So we don't hold them there longer than we have to.
Okay.
But we'll keep whatever companies are necessary there to continue with the overhaul and the salvage and things like that.
Vice Mayor DeHaan?
Yeah. Do we make an estimate how long the fire had
Burning?
a chance burning before we got there?
I haven't heard that. I'm sure that's being looked at in the investigation of the fire. As I say, we have information that leads us to believe we have a good idea of what caused it. I wouldn't want to, say that right now because the investigation is ongoing. But I'm sure that the investigators know what time the people left the home and when the fire came in, and they can deduce if this source could have, resulted in this.
The firefighter that was injured, was he burned through protective clothing, or?
What happened, as far as we can tell, and by talking to him and other members of the crew, but we want to, as I said, we want to do a very thorough look into this. He was inside the building, just in kind of the entryway. There were 2 companies working together. And you can imagine conditions and excitement and this and that. What I understand is somebody, perhaps on the other crew, bumped into him, knocked him off balance, and there was a low, what we call a knee wall, about 3 feet 30 inches high, and he fell over that wall. And when he fell, it caused a separation between his coat and his turnouts, which exposed some skin, and then it was burned. Now, that's one of the factors we want to look at. Is it an issue with the equipment that maybe needs to be remedied, or because the turnouts are designed and intended to protect people, so we want to know why in this case he didn't have that protection.
Okay, now you went through an explanation of what was happening and how it occurred. Do you think this is out of the ordinary, or pretty much ordinary circumstances and time response and things of that nature?
I think that our response was ordinary, normal. In fact, it was on the better end of the scale because all units were available except for that truck. But we had ample engines and resources available to handle a first alarm. So I don't see anything unusual about the response time or the resources that were available to respond. It all went down like you would expect. That part of it.
Except for injuries.
Except for the injuries, yes. I think it was already kind of clarified by the questions that certainly that first unit on the scene, you can generally expect they're going to be there for a little while by themselves because they're the closest station, and it's just a matter of travel time for the other units to get there. And that's evident and present in almost every case. Now, every case is different. Sometimes units are on the road. Sometimes we're right around the corner from an incident. Sometimes we're farther away. So there's nothing that happens the same twice. But in general, in this case, all units were in station, responding from station, except the truck.